During World War II, direction meant survival. A single wrong turn in the dark forests of France or the icy hills of Norway could lead a soldier straight into an ambush, or make them vanish without a trace. Yet, some never got lost. Even without a map, even without a compass, they always found their way back. Their secret wasn't luck or magic. It was a skill so clever it could hide in plain sight. Inside a uniform button, a cufflink, or even a shaving razor. This is the story of the hidden compass trick, a lost wartime secret that turned ordinary items into life-saving navigation tools. Behind enemy lines, every decision mattered. Allied commandos, saboteurs, and spies operated far from support, dropped by parachute into unfamiliar territory with nothing but what they could carry. A compass or a map could mean safety, but if captured, those same items were a death sentence. German intelligence knew exactly what to look for. Hidden maps, navigation tools, or coded coordinates. So, the Allies had to adapt. They needed equipment that didn't look like equipment. Objects that could pass any inspection, yet secretly hold the power to guide a soldier home. In secret workshops across London, a quiet revolution began. Tailors, engineers, and scientists were recruited by the British Special Operations Executive to create escape and evasion aids. Their orders were simple: make survival invisible. The result was extraordinary. Ordinary-looking objects, buttons, cufflinks, collar pins, belt buckles, were redesigned with hidden mechanisms. Some contained tiny compasses. Others held silk maps, razor saws, or magnetized discs no larger than a coin. On Savile Row, the same street known for luxury suits, expert tailors worked with military scientists to sew life-saving secrets into every stitch. The most famous creation was the escape button compass. To the untrained eye, it looked like any brass button on a military uniform. But when detached, the top and bottom halves were made of differently magnetized materials. When the button was balanced carefully on a pin or a string, it would rotate, one side pointing true north. Pilots wore them on their flight suits. Paratroopers carried them sewn inside their jackets. Even agents working undercover wore them on civilian coats. If caught, it looked harmless. If lost in the wilderness, it could guide you hundreds of miles home. At its core, the hidden compass relied on magnetism, one of nature's simplest but most powerful forces. A magnetized object naturally aligns itself with Earth's magnetic field. Soldiers learned to recreate this anywhere, anytime, using a sewing needle, silk cloth, and water. They'd rub the needle in one direction along silk or wool, building static electricity that aligned the atoms of the metal, turning it into a tiny magnet. Then they'd place it on a leaf or a scrap of cork and float it in still water. Slowly, silently, it would turn, one end pointing north, the other south. It was simple science, but under wartime conditions, it was genius. No batteries, no casing, no evidence, just raw ingenuity. In the field, soldiers pushed this concept further. They learned to magnetize razor blades, pins, or even pieces of wire. Some used fragments from downed aircraft, steel shavings from engines or bolts, rubbing them against fabric until they could float and orient north. One pilot recalled crafting a compass from the metal clasp of his flight gloves. He magnetized it with friction, floated it on a piece of bread and water, and used it to navigate toward Allied lines at night. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. In survival, close enough could mean the difference between rescue and capture. But even the best gadgets meant nothing without knowledge. Commandos were trained to navigate with or without tools. They studied how moss and lichens grew thicker on the north-facing sides of trees and rocks. They learned the patterns of the sun and moon, the direction of river flows, and the flight paths of migrating birds. Instructors drilled them relentlessly. If you lose your compass, you still have your eyes. They practiced using the wristwatch method, pointing the hour hand toward the sun, bisecting the angle between it and 12 o'clock to find south. At night, they followed Polaris, the North Star, which remains fixed while all others circle around it. To the SOE, this wasn't just navigation. It was mental discipline. A commando's greatest compass was his trained mind. Every agent sent into occupied territory carried a small escape kit. Most were disguised as personal grooming items, razors, shaving brushes, pencils, or matchboxes. Inside, they hid mini-maps printed on silk, gold coins for bribery, and of course, a tiny hidden compass. The training behind these kits was top secret. Even within the military, few outside the intelligence units knew these tools existed. Instructors burned manuals after lessons to ensure nothing leaked. Agents were told, if captured, remember nothing, reveal nothing, leave nothing. Their best tool was knowledge, invisible, untraceable, and irreplaceable. There are real stories of these devices saving lives. One RAF pilot shot down over France used his jacket button to guide himself north for 3 nights, walking more than 80 kilometers to reach resistance fighters. Another story tells of an SOE agent escaping a prison camp by magnetizing a sewing needle with his wool sweater and using a puddle as his compass. He later said, "That tiny trick was worth more than a map." For many, these hidden tools weren't just clever gadgets. They were symbols of hope. Each one represented a chance, no matter how small, to make it home. Today, we live surrounded by technology, GPS, satellite tracking, smartphones. We rarely think about direction. Our devices do it for us. But if power fails, if signals vanish, most of us would be helpless. Yet the same principle that guided soldiers through war can still guide us through wilderness, disaster, or isolation. A single piece of metal and a bit of patience can still reveal north. And more importantly, understanding how it works builds confidence and calm in any crisis. The hidden compass trick is more than a forgotten wartime invention. It's a reminder that knowledge outlives technology. Every magnetized needle, every disguised button, every secret compass carried one timeless message. When everything else is taken from you, skill and knowledge are your last tools. Those who survived behind enemy lines weren't just soldiers. They were thinkers, innovators, problem solvers. They turned science into survival. And that legacy still matters. So the next time you see a simple button, imagine it quietly turning north, guiding someone home through the fog of war. That's not just history. That's the spirit of human ingenuity at its finest. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Forgotten Survival for more untold stories of wartime invention, survival, and the forgotten fieldcrafts that shaped our world. Because in the end, the mind will always be mankind's greatest compass.